One good. So I want to give you fair warning on this because I want to give you fair warning on this because this is going to be a difficult lesson, even graphic at times. And I struggled. I struggle every year as I prepare for this because this is so gruesome, and you are so young. And at the same time, however, I believe we need to hear what you're about to hear. I think we need to know more than just that Jesus suffered for us, but also I think we need to hear how much our Lord suffered. And so, I also believe that we need to see the cross as the most glorious moment in all of history, but also the most horrible in all of history. But it is in fact the King of Glory who hung on that cross. So I'm going to describe to you in some detail what Jesus said. And if it's not something you've heard before, it might be disturbing. I think it should disturb us. I think it's good for us to be disturbed by this. So I'm not going to pull any punches. So this lesson continues the account of what happened to Jesus. Remember we were talking about his betrayal, his arrest, his trial before Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin, and then Peter's denial, and now we're moving on to the next thing. So following the trials with Annas and Caiaphas and with the Sanhedrin, meaning the Jewish religious establishment, the leaders of the Jews, then that was done, and he's ready to go to Pilate. All of that was waiting for sunrise so that they could take Jesus to Pilate, because they couldn't kill him. They couldn't execute him. Pilate could, and so they had this in mind from the beginning. So it's really early in the morning, maybe sunrise, maybe 5:30ish in the morning, but it's really early in the morning, and he walks. They walk him across to Pilate's palace. Now, Pontius Pilate actually didn't live in Jerusalem. He actually lived in Galilee. But he came to Jerusalem a few times a year, primarily for the feasts, to kind of keep the people under control, kind of like when there's sort of a protest or something, a planned protest, a peaceful protest. The cops are there to make sure that nothing gets out of hand, right? And so he came to Jerusalem during those times, and he stayed in his royal palace there. And so the Jews take Jesus to Pilate's house, but they don't go in. Why don't they go in? Because they would be defiled by going into a Gentile house, and then they wouldn't be able to keep the Passover. They wouldn't be able to celebrate the Passover. They would have had to cleanse themselves by not doing that. The irony of this never ceases to amaze me. They would be defiled by walking into someone's home, but they're not defiled by condemning an innocent man to death. They don't see that. They don't get it. They don't get that what they're doing is far more simple than walking into Pilate's house. So here's Jesus facing Pilate. And we'll read verses 29 through 32 of John 18. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. And then there's this ensuing conversation that they have. Pilate wanted to know, what has this guy done? If I'm going to condemn him, then I need to know what he's done. And the Jews really offered nothing except to say that, well, he had to do something. We wouldn't bring him to you if he hadn't done something. You were bringing him to you because he's done, illegal things. He deserves punishment. And so then Pilate takes Jesus inside for a private conference. And the ensuing conversation showed why Jesus is called the King of Kings. Here it is. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him for yourselves and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken, to show by what kind of death he was going to die. So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not from this world." Then Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" So Pilate pronounces him innocent. After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, "I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" This conversation with Pilate is interesting. When asked if he's the Christ, Jesus says, "You say that I am." And Pilate even admitted then, "You are a king." Admitted that he was a king. And that last part where Jesus says, "Everyone of the truth hears my voice." That last thing Pilate said, "What is truth?" I'd love to know how he said that. Here's what I think he didn't say it. "Tell me, what is truth? You tell me." No. I think this was kind of a negative, what is truth? There's no such thing as truth, maybe. Or, there's all different kinds of, different people think different things are true. And I think it was almost sarcastic, but we can't know that for sure. But the ironic thing is that truth is standing right in front of him in Jesus. And he doesn't notice it. He doesn't understand it at all. And so then Pilate goes out and he says, "I see no guilt in him. He's innocent." And then he says, "Take him and try him yourself." Why don't they want to take Jesus and try him themselves? Why do the Jews not want to do that? Yeah.
Because every time Jesus is outsmarted them.
Yes, every time Jesus is outsmarted them, but there's another reason that's even more salient.
Well, he changed the word.
I did change the word. Oh, yeah.
Because they weren't
In a position to be what?
like be able to do that. Like luckily, like that wasn't their position.
They could try him, but they couldn't execute him. And they don't want him to just be tried.
Once they were kind of using them,
Right. I mean, they didn't want him just to be jailed. That would probably have made him more popular, right? But they wanted him dead, and they couldn't do that. The Romans didn't allow the Jews to. Now that it happens sometimes, but they didn't allow them as part of the judicial process to execute anyone. Now, Pilate comes up with what he thinks is a great idea. Look, there's this custom. We release someone, and surely they'll release Jesus. And so he says, who do you want for me to release? Jesus or Barabbas? And they say Barabbas. And the mob is going to say Barabbas. And so now what is, well, let's read this first. So the mob chooses Barabbas over Jesus. They cried out again, not this man, but Barabbas. Now, Barabbas was a robber. Some say he led an insurrection. Some say that he killed someone. But Barabbas was in prison for a reason. He was actually guilty. So now they've chosen Barabbas. Now what's Pilate going to do? And then it says that Pilate took Jesus and flogged him. Here's what I think Pilate's trying to do. I think Pilate's thinking, okay, if I just have this guy whipped, then they'll be appeased. Like they'll be okay with that, and then I won't have to. Now, flogging was a normal practice before execution, but I think Pilate was hoping to get out of executing an innocent man, and so he had Jesus flogged, hoping that they would change. So the Romans scourged Jesus. I'm going to read to you from a passage that describes what happened to Jesus. Again, this is not easy to hear. Preparations for the scourging are carried out. The prisoner is stripped of his clothing and his hands tied to a post. His head is above his head. So he's tied to a post above his head. It is doubtful whether the Romans made any attempt to follow the Jewish law in this matter of scourging. The Jews had an ancient law prohibiting more than 40 lashes, and they always gave 39 just in case they had miscounted. The Pharisees always making sure that the law was this is what it says next, strictly kept, insisting that only 39 lashes be given in case of miscount. They were sure of remaining within the law. The Roman, of course, innocent man either. The Roman legionnaires stepped, but the Romans weren't held to that. So Jesus was scourged at least 39 times. It may very well have been more. And often the Romans kept scourging someone until they just passed out or died. So we don't know how many. The Roman legionnaire steps forward with the flagrum or flagellum in his hand, and that's kind of a recreation of what it might have looked like. It was a short whip consisting of several heavy leather thongs with two small balls of lead attached to near the ends of each. They also would put bones and rocks into these as well, jagged bones and things like that for the into the whip. The heavy whip is brought down with full force and again across Jesus' shoulders, back, and legs. At first, the heavy thongs cut through the skin only. Then as the blows continue, they cut deeper into subcutaneous tissues, producing first an oozing of blood from the capillaries and veins of the skin, and finally a spurting of arterial bleeding from vessels in the underlying muscles. The small balls of lead first produce large, deep bruises, which are broken open by the subsequent blows. Finally, the skin of the back is hanging in long ribbons, and the entire area is an unrecognizable mass of torn, bleeding tissue. When the centurion in charge determines the prisoner is near death, the beating is finally stopped. Torture is all. Then half fainting, the half fainting Jesus is then untied and allowed to slump to the pavement. wet with his own blood. The Roman soldiers see a great joke in this provincial Jew claiming to be a king. They throw a robe across his shoulders and place a stick of thorns in his hands, and they ridicule him. They begin mocking him. And then they make take a small bundle of flexible branches covered with long thorns. I'm gonna move that star. I was given these from a friend who went to Israel, and these are the type of thorns that the crown of thorns were made out of. You can see how long they are and how strong they are. So it would have been, the crown would have been shoved onto his head, and there would have been copious bleeding because the head is the most vascular part of our bodies, one of the most anyway, and so there would have been a lot of blood. And finally, they tire of their sadistic sports, and they stop. Mercifully, maybe, I don't know. But they hail him as King of the Jews. They mock him as King of the Jews. And so then Pilate presents this weakened, mocked Jesus to the mob, thinking, surely this is enough. Surely this will satisfy him. And for a second time, Jesus is declared innocent. I find no guilt in him. And the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head and arrayed him in a purple robe. They came up to him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews, and struck him with their hands. Pilate went out again and said to them, See, I am bringing him out to you that you may know that I find no guilt in him. So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, to the crowd, Behold the man. So Pilate once more declares him innocent. Listen, Pilate is not the good guy here. He was a calculating, cold-hearted, cruel man. And the behavior he had allowed was against Roman law as well. So now everything that's happening to Jesus is not only against Jewish law, it's also against Roman law. It is unlawful anywhere to convict, to condemn, to torture an innocent person. And that is exactly what they've done. Yes?
So he's trying to seem like nice and affable to everyone, but he's just like breaking every law to do that. So doesn't that undo everything that he's trying to help himself?
Yeah, it's one of those things like the ends justifies the means. But that, I don't know if you know what that means. But if you're working toward a good goal, then it's fine to do something bad because the goal is good. It's not correct. I mean, it's not right. But that's what he's trying. That's what I think.
And I think he kind of just failed at that. Like,
Yeah. So
he's breaking all of the laws instead of just breaking like one.
And then he ends up giving in, and so, yeah, it was to know whether they. So Jesus was illegally flogged, and that's according to both Roman and Jewish law. And still, the crowd was not satisfied. Pilate thought for sure, look, he's no longer a threat; he's a broken man. And so, a third time, he's declared innocent. So this is 3 times. That Jesus is declared innocent. And the Jews startled Pilate by saying that they don't want Jesus to be released. So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." When the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this statement, he was even more afraid. Um, then he entered his headquarters again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. So Pilate said to him, "You will not speak to me? Do you not know that I have the authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me to you has the greater sin." From then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." So when Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat at the place called the Stone Pavement, and in Aramaic, Gabbatha. So they make this point that was very persuasive to Pilate. You're going to get in trouble with Rome again. And he'd been in trouble with Rome several times. Because this guy makes himself a king. We have no king but Caesar. And that's what they're about to say. Rome. And this is what convinces Pilate that he has to convict and kill an innocent man. Because he's going to lose his position. He's going to get in trouble with Rome. Now it was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about the 6th hour. He said to the Jews, "Behold your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." So they delivered him over to the Jews. Here are these Jews who hate Rome and who hate Caesar, and whose only king is God, are saying, "We have no king but Caesar." That's one of the worst possible. It's unbelievable that they would say that, but they did. So Pilate is trapped. He has really no choice. He still believes Jesus is innocent, but he was fearful. He was fearful about Jesus' claims to deity, but he was also fearful of the Jews and fearful of Caesar, who would brand him a traitor, likely. And so Pilate chooses politics over justice. That's happened, hasn't it? And he turned Christ over to the soldiers to be crucified. Now, he is an innocent man, and it is an unjustified persecution. But at the same time, all of this was God's plan. Jesus voluntarily surrendered to it. So when we come back tomorrow, we'll finish this and talk about the crucifixion. That's it.